How do you like them apples, huh? Punk? Yeah, 1 minute early. Didn't see that coming, did you? Huh? What do you got to
Sonic
say for yourself this
photon.
time? Not one of you got in there with a, oh, they're late comment, because I was a minute early. Thank you very much.
Love it. I think we've just rattled everyone in the chat. They're all freaking out. They're like, oh my God, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready.
They don't know what to do. Early. Yes, thank you. Bit of credit. Gobi Rail. Whoa. Yep. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. We just like to keep you on your toes.
This I want to talk about. Good rain and hello. Fantastic rain. And it's been now, okay, I get it. Other parts of Australia are struggling under way too much water. So, I mean, no disrespect, obviously, where the floods are, that's a really serious thing. And I'm sorry for that situation. For the situation around where I am, Northern Victoria, Southern Inland New South Wales, it has been crippling drought. And if they didn't get really good late summer rain, then they were going to lose another entire season. There was literally, there's maybe 2 weeks left for them to get some decent rain. And we've just had a second really good rain band come through, and it was exactly the right kind of rain, just this really steady, sort of soaking rain, not a lot of wind, just sort of passing over and just slowly soaking the ground. I chatted with a farmer north of here, where it is always a bit drier. Here, I don't know what we got here, but it was probably 2 inches, maybe 3, I'm not sure, just over the course of 24 hours. But further north, I had a chat with this farmer. He got 35 mil, which is pretty good, for where he is, and I'm really, really happy for him. So, I think I'm actually in a really, really good mood, because there is rain falling outside my studio door right now. And the longer that goes on for, the happier I'm going to get.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, already they're talking about how Melbourne's going to be on water restrictions. And I mean, we've chatted about this before, but what's the point of the desalination plant? Why do we spend all of this money building a desal plant if all of a sudden you're going to put us back on restrictions? Like, it's just getting ridiculous at this point.
And they're not accounting for the population growth. They should have built a dam on the Mitchell River. The Mitchell River has flooded, I believe, 4, maybe 5 times major floods since I did a video in 2009, saying we need to build a dam on the Mitchell River. But more than that, what they're now discovering about desalination plants is that the discharge, which is hypersaline, it's much more salty than normal seawater, about 2 to 3 times as salty, depending on the plant and the technology used. That is somewhat implicated in various algal blooms and marine biology issues that are now starting. And a lot of what we've seen around Adelaide, there are questions now being asked about Adelaide's desalination plant and its role in all of that. So it turns out that the whole idea of, we can't build a dam, that'll have negative ecological impacts. Well, okay, but it can also have positive ones. But anyway, they said, no, we can't do that. We need to do a desalination plant because it doesn't hurt the environment. Well, it chews up enormous amounts of power that could be used for other purposes. And apparently, according to the fearmongers, damages the environment. And also now we're discovering that maybe that seawater discharge isn't quite as benign as what we thought it was. So it's ridiculous.
Have you ever seen those videos where they're underwater and there's the brine puddles at the bottom of the ocean, and it looks like liquid mercury or something? It's just a puddle under the ocean. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I read a book. It's a fiction book, but it was Tom Clancy. He kind of ghost authored. He puts his name on books these days. He doesn't really write many of them. It was a book called SSN, which is about American nuclear attack submarines. And it was fascinating as a younger man just to read it, because it was just an interesting story and pretty well put together and very, very explicitly tactical, kind of just going through the motions of exactly how submarine warfare works. And one of the things I took out of it was actually, as you go through the column of water, and then as you go through different marine environments, water ain't water. Like it is crazy how different it is. And there's a few places we can see that on the surface, particularly where there is a river system running into the ocean, or even south of Argentina, where you have 2 oceans meeting. You've got your South Pacific and your South Atlantic oceans meeting down there in the Antarctic Ocean. Yeah, they don't want to actually meet each other, because the salinity levels and turbidity levels and various stuff like that is actually slightly different, and they kind of repel each other, and it takes a while for it to mix. Like, it's insane. And then here's the crazy bit. Stop and realize the exact same thing is happening in the air above our heads. Right, we look up and it's just the air. No. There it is, boiling and turning and churning, and there are layers that are moving in different directions, and there are bits kind of higher pressure and lower pressure and stuff that doesn't want to mix, and all that's just going on all the time, and we're completely unaware. It's amazing. The world is amazing. That's what I'll say.
The world is amazing. One more thing before we get into it. Have you ever seen, I'm just trying to bring it up on screen, the Mauritius waterfall that looks like an optical illusion? Do you know what I'm talking about?
There's a few that you might be referring to, not Mauritius specifically. I don't know which one the Mauritius one is, but there's a few images that come to mind. Can I just read this comment out, because this is pretty cool in light of what we talk about here? Richie Goddard, how about I cheer you all up with a good news palate cleanser? As I was taking 3 shopping trolleys off the street. Hang on, that's just showing off. Like, 1 is minimum, 2, now you're doing the world a favor. 3, who are you trying to impress? Like that, just calm down, buddy.
Me, you're trying to impress me.
As I was taking 3 shopping trolleys off the street as I was leaving the supermarket, a boy about 10 or 12 years of age was doing the same. I vote for that boy for Prime Minister immediately.
It's chicken in the noodle aisle, guys. It's catching on. It's a contagion. People are getting on board. Right, before we get in, this is the the waterfall. So this is in Mauritius, and what it is, it's not. It looks like an optical illusion. Well, it's an optical illusion. Sorry, it looks like there's this massive waterfall underground, and what it is, it's actually the salt and sand retracting, and it just looks like that from above, which is pretty amazing. The world's a pretty cool place.
It is. It's an incredible place. We should talk about travel at some point in this episode, a little bit later on, because I don't know if you heard the news. There are people devastated, crying about this, that the Tampa, Florida airport has apparently, allegedly, moved to ban wearing pajamas whilst traveling. So I think we need to talk about travel etiquette.
We will talk about that, but obviously massive things happening in the news this week. And for those who haven't been paying attention, things have kicked off in Iran. We have got Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, who are currently or have taken out the top brass of the Islamic Republic, the Iranian regime. And I thought, rather than Topher and I waxing lyrical and talking, how about we have an Iranian join us and actually tell us what's going on? So,
mark today in your diaries, everybody. Today's the day where, for the first time in Oddcast history, we actually have somebody who knows what they're talking about.
True. So, guys, I would like to welcome our first guest. It is Diba Agahi, and he is an Iranian living here in Australia. And Diba, welcome to the show. Diba, sorry, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, how you doing? Thanks for inviting me to your show.
You're welcome. Go, Topher, go.
No, all I was going to say is we apologize. Diba's audio volume is a bit low. We were literally troubleshooting that, trying to get his audio level higher. And then some idiot started the show 1 minute early. That would be me. And we ran out of time to troubleshoot. So we're just going to have to do our best, Diba. But we really do appreciate you coming on. And obviously there's a lot to talk about and a lot to think about.
So, Diba, I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, how do you feel about the Ayatollah being no longer with us? What are your sentiments?
I cannot describe the feeling. It's an amazing feeling. It's just like, it's very hard to describe. We've been waiting for this for so long, and wow, it brings tears to my eyes. Very joyous moment. Yes, it was yesterday for all the Iranians, at least 95% of the Iranians.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're seeing mixed reactions depending on which news source you're looking at. We've got people like yourself celebrating in the street, everyone very, very happy to hear the news. And then, of course, depending which news website we're looking at, we see the opposite. We see people mourning over the loss of Khamenei. We see them, clutching his photo and things like that. And I think as Westerners, we always hear about things happening in the Middle East from second, third-hand sources. Everyone's got bias. When it comes to an actual Iranian and the Iranian people, of your population, how many people do you think actually are mourning Khamenei right now?
Look, thanks for bringing this up. This is a very good point that you have actually raised. And let me take a step back and let you know that, what you see on mainstream media just does not cover what the actuality on the ground is. Please remember that the Islamic regime in Iran, and we would like to refer to it as an Islamic regime. We don't call it Iran, okay? Or they have pumped a lot of money over the years into propaganda, not just inside but outside as well. And so that's why a lot of mainstream medias, either willingly or unwillingly, have been under the influence of the regime, and majority of the thing in the broadcast actually is more in favor of the regime, which it really brings frustration to us as diaspora. It's very hard to guess because, as you know, it's a very theocratic, sort of regime, and flow of information is very difficult, okay, to get the exact numbers. But our guess would be something around like the minority 5% are ruling over the 95% who are unhappy.
Yeah.
And this was clearly demonstrated by the videos that start coming out of Iran after the January massacre. So this is our guess would be around 95% would be a good guess, sort of the people who are actually in favor and happy. But what we see on mainstream media, they show the 5%.
So, Diba, a couple of sort of, I guess, points and questions I want to roll into one. And really, the crux of it is what's likely to rise in place of the Islamic regime, assuming that we are able to see a complete toppling of that regime. We haven't seen that yet. Obviously, Khomeini is dead, but that doesn't mean the regime crumbles. The regime, of course, have the guns. They have the military. We've also seen recently, I think as recently as last week, we saw the Mujahideen attempt some sort of an assault on the royal palace. You might know more about that than I do, I'm not sure. But they were ultimately repelled, but they appear to be a decent, large, coordinated, militarized group within Iran itself. Failing the West putting boots on the ground, how do we get from where we are to some sort of a transition away from the regime towards some sort of a representative government, or at the very least, not a repressive government?
So again, thanks for bringing up the MEK or Mujahideen, Mujahideen Khalq or MEK group. Actually, this group are not really favored by the Iranians at all. Okay, and they pump a lot of money into media for their propaganda. They don't represent, they represent for a very small minority. Let's go back about 47 years ago, in 1979 Islamic Revolution. The MEK was partnering with Khomeini to take over of the Islamists. And then after the takeover, the Khomeini turned back at them and started slaughtering the Mujahideen, okay, and then they defected. So they do not represent us, and they actually, what you see or you hear on the internet may not be as accurate as you see. It could be some skirmish, and they blow it out of proportion. But back to your first question, as what happens, and this is a very legitimate concern, because when there is a vacuum, okay, when there is a sort of vacuum during the transition, or when the regime falls, everyone is concerned what's going to happen. We are, as Iranian, also concerned. But we have a leader, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi. He has put a great effort, and he created a coalition with majority of the oppositions last year. And they put together a very detailed plan. And I really invite everybody to actually go through that plan and read it, called Iran Prospective Project, or IPP, which was just recently revised the past few days, just before the attack. This outlines clearly what's going to happen for the first 100 and 180 days after the fall of the regime. So it's not like, and that's why we say we're completely different to what happened to Iraq after the fall of Saddam, which there was a massive vacuum there, or Afghanistan, okay, which, when Taliban took over again, and we have a plan in place. And this plan has been put in place by a panel of professionals. And this covers every ground, from how to recover economically, how to actually even to do with health and everything, in building infrastructure, and how to get back the armed forces, not get back, how to deal with the security at the situation, because security would be the utmost importance when the vacuum starts. The next thing is His Royal Highness set up a platform a few months ago for defection. And if you listen to his announcement for the past few days, he keeps encouraging more of the armed forces in Iran whose hand has not been soiled by blood of the civilians to defend. And from the first day that this platform was actually came on board was very successful, okay, and a lot of armed forces have already joined the platform, but the question rises when they're going to come in. But there would be a sort of a moment, because, like, you know, what we saw during January, some of those who defected came out, like, you know, as an individual and quickly got executed on the spot. So if you understand the position, there should be a right moment that will be announced. And these people will start taking over. Something about the IPP as well. Another thing that they're looking at is what's it called, to do with transitional. I'm looking for a word. I'm going blank at the moment.
Transitional government?
No, not transitional government. The whole IPP is for transitional period, actually, by the way, which is basically all the way going to an election to choose the form of governance for the future of Iran. And that's the whole point of it, okay? But to stop the chaos and sort of people just taking revenge, you know, willy-nilly and all that sort of a thing, there is a system put in place during the transition period for actually for not a court, but it's more like to actually transitional justice. This is called transitional justice. So that's the word that comes to my mind. So I'm just a bit, you know, so I'm going to draft.
Diba, may I ask, like, when we're looking at the current news coverage, particularly coming out of Australia and the US, obviously we're very divided politically at the moment. There is this rhetoric around Donald Trump is just an agent of Mossad. This is Israel's war. And obviously a lot of the commentary surrounding this is basically saying that, you know, the Western countries have been pulled into another Middle Eastern war that's got nothing to do with us. And this is all at the hands of Bibi Netanyahu. And I feel like what's happening in this conversation is that the voices of Iranians are getting sidelined. You know, you guys are becoming background noise to your own country. Yeah. I guess from your perspective, when it comes to watching media commentators speculate on what should be happening and what shouldn't happen in Iran, how do Iranians see Donald Trump? How do you feel about Israel helping you guys? And obviously, we know Trump's not benevolent. We know that Trump is acting in the best interest of America, so is Israel. But as the people who are part of the country that we're currently talking about, how do you guys view this conversation? Because at the moment in the West, it's one or the other.
Look like we have developed, generally in the West, we have developed some sort of sensitivity or allergy towards Israel, the word Israel and the word Trump. Okay, so like the moment we hear these two words, you know, sort of we go blank, look like it's some sort of filter that comes in front of our eyes and we cannot hear anything that comes after it. All right. In reality, it is different. This is what people of Iran have requested for not political intervention, but this is a humanitarian intervention to help because their hand. Okay, but we also have an increased number of isolationists, you know, and it's understandable. People say, why? It's not our problem, it's their problem, leave them to them. Let me paint a much bigger picture about this. I think what is happening now in the Middle East, in particular in Iran, is like a Berlin Wall moment of the 21st century. And the impact of it would be well and truly beyond just the country or the region. It will impact the rest of the world. You will see it now at the petrol bowser, okay, that the price of petrol is going up and all that sort of thing. And you see the price of gold going up. but more than anything is for our national security. We have not, probably a lot of Australians haven't noticed, but because this whole thing about terrorism, okay, and again, radical Islamists and, political Islamists, sort of been funded slowly, and it's been injected in small doses. That's why we don't notice it. But like the majority have been funded by this regime, because the regime is the biggest sponsor of terrorism, and Australia is no exception. If you think we are in far corner of the world and nobody come near us, we are mistaken, and we already seen the impact of it. What happened few months ago, at Bondi Beach.
Yeah.
So, Diba, we're getting a lot of comments from people who are saying they're trying really hard to understand you, but they're struggling. So we might not go for too much longer here with you, but thank you so much for coming on. I do want to ask you though, in the event that we were to see, and let's assume that this interim plan is what gets followed, and that's what's being put in place. Would you and would a lot of other Iranians that you know be in a rush to get back there to participate in that rebuilding and the I guess the introduction of democratic processes into Iran? Or is your sentiment more that was your home and that's in the past now?
Look, the wave of migration. Can you hear me better now? I'm getting much closer to my microphone.
Yeah, your mic's a little bit. Your mic's just a little bit hard to hear, but that's all right. Keep going.
Okay. Hopefully, it'll be next time I get a better microphone. Look, the wave of migration out of Iran has been over the years, as such that some people would stay back. We've got roughly around 8 to 10 million Iranian outside Iran, diaspora. And I would say a big number of these diaspora would like to go back to help with the rebuild process, either in there or they'll probably be able to help from outside, from one way or other. But definitely there's a big interest because there's a lot of Iranians have actually migrated over past 10, 15 years, I would say, because of massive financial, economical issues as well. And they would like to go back. I see a lot of Iranians around me that they cannot wait. As for me, I've been in Australia for a long time, but I would like to go back at least to sort of visit, and if there is an opportunity for me to do something, I definitely would help.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Diba. I really appreciate it. We'd love to hear from you again. We need to get you a mic, but I mean, it was so lovely to hear.
For everyone that was struggling to hear, Carly and I will break down what Diba has just gone through, because it was really good stuff, and I'm sorry that you guys couldn't really hear it. But Diba, thank you so much. We do need to get you a better microphone, because I do think this is the topic that is going to travel for the next couple of weeks at the very least. And then obviously if there is a rebuilding, then that's going to remain relevant for some time to come. So we look forward to having you back.
Anytime, more than happy. Thanks for the platform.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Okay, so we will get him back on. Lots of people are requesting that. And what he had to say was very worth hearing. So let me just quickly go through
I apologize, guys. There's not much we can do, but I mean, more than happy to have Diba back on. But I think it's so important to hear from.
If there weren't technical problems, it wouldn't be the Oddcast. I mean, this is literally part of our brand. Things go wrong.
It's not my microphone. At least it's not my microphone for once.
And huge amounts of appreciation coming from the audience here. Please get him back ASAP. Thank you. So we will definitely do that. Okay. The thing that stuck out to me the most, that I'm the happiest of everything to hear, is that there is a transition plan that people are already working on. This is the biggest question mark that we have now is, okay, it's one thing to topple a government. It's another thing for out of those ashes to emerge a stable, freedom-friendly place where people can actually thrive and prosper. And so to hear that the people are already working on that is great. My concern, and what I'll be asking Diba about next time, is, do people with guns back him? It's one thing to say, well, he's got the opposition, but the opposition are disarmed. right? Who's got guns? Because what I don't want to see is a situation where things maybe boil on for a little while, and obviously Iran, I think Diba made a great point, the Islamic Republic, because it's not the same thing. The Islamic Republic are lashing out. They're firing drones at people. They're just trying to, they're a dying animal thrashing around. But at some point, let's just say it becomes feasible to say that that regime has collapsed. Well, history doesn't paint a very pretty picture about what comes in its place. It's whoever else has guns and whoever else is organized. And so there's a transition plan in place. That's fantastic to hear. Are they depending on US boots on the ground? Is that what it's going to take? Because that is not music to my ears. That doesn't end well. We've seen that. We've seen that movie so many times already, and it doesn't tend to end well. So look, there's a lot that's unknown. I'm encouraged by what he had to say, but there is a lot that is still unknown.
I've been speaking to so many Iranians over the last couple of days. And I mean, I made this point on my Instagram today because people are obviously up in arms. Everyone's already picked a side. Everyone's already dissecting this and giving their 10 cents. And my frustration, I actually just did a reel on this on Insta. I won't play it for you. You guys can go on my Insta and watch it. But basically just saying that I'm calling this Western political narcissism. This is like my new term. And what I'm trying to refer to here is that whenever something else happens overseas, we in the West immediately try and put the cameras back on ourselves and use this to talk about our own politics. And in this whole time, in the last, 48 hours since this has all been going on, it's probably a bit longer than that now, 3 days, I'm yet to hear anyone platform Iranians. All I'm hearing about Donald Trump's bad, Bibi Netanyahu, Epstein files, anything but how the Iranians
I'm hearing
feel.
Epstein's war. Epstein's war. What does that? What does that even mean in practical terms? So I put up a video and just talking about the fact that I think Trump's actions. Let's remember, and you alluded to it earlier, Carly. This isn't benevolence on Trump's part. People say, oh, America's just interested in the oil. Well, they're interested in the oil and some other things, which I'll get to in a second. That's true. But understand, no one's being benevolent here. China aren't interested in Iran, and BRICS aren't interested in Iranian and Venezuelan oil out of benevolence. It's out of self-interest. Everyone's acting in self-interest. That doesn't automatically mean that what they're doing is bad. It can do, but it doesn't automatically mean that. But what's happening in my view, and we see this because Trump took out Venezuela's oil supply. So by kidnapping Maduro or by arresting Maduro, taking him to the US, and then shutting down the Caribbean from the point of view of the shadow tanker fleet, he has cut off Venezuelan oil from the shadow oil network. Now, what they were doing was they were taking Venezuelan heavy crude. It's a sulfur heavy, pretty low quality crude, needs a lot of work. And then they're taking that out to sea. And then they've got light oil coming from Russia or from Iran, or perhaps even oil from Brazil coming up. And actually sometimes at sea, sometimes in port, but sometimes at sea, they'd be pumping that oil around between the tankers, deliberately mixing it together. And what they're trying to do is create a blend of oil that can't be definitively said to have been embargoed. You can't definitively say that oil definitely came from Venezuela because, well, yeah, it matches that profile, but it also has all this other stuff in it. And so they create this kind of ambiguous oil that they then sell to India, to China, and to South Africa, and originally to Brazil as well, because they were an oil importing country in 2010 when the BRIC group originally formed. Now they're an oil exporter, so they don't need it anymore. But that was the idea, was for these countries to be able to tap into embargoed oil, get it cheap because no one else is willing to buy it, and power their economies cheaper than what the West could power ours. And so what Trump did, taking Venezuela out of that shadow oil fleet and now taking Iran out of the shadow oil fleet, is he's actually strangling a lot of the cheap energy supply for China, as well as for India and for a couple of other countries. Now, that's significant, obviously, because of the balancing with China, and that's sort of the rising power narrative. We all know about that. What's hugely significant to me is that in the middle of February, India seized 3 shadow oil tankers that had entered Indian waters. India, no BRICS country had ever seized a shadow oil tanker or a member of the shadow fleet up to that moment in time, up until literally 3 weeks ago. It had never happened. And some EU countries have, the US have, the UK have, no BRICS country had. Now, what India were doing, and this was before Iran, this was before this current round of hostilities in Iran, just in response to Maduro and Venezuela being taken out of that picture, they sat there and we went, we're going to suck up to the US. We're going to play nice with the US. We're going to pivot against BRICS. Now, understand the oil on those tankers was headed directly from Iran to China. China doesn't care about mixing the oils. They just buy it anyway. They don't care about the embargoes, right? They don't have to play those games. It's India and South Africa and so forth. They play the games. China just imports whatever the hell it wants. And so that was Iranian oil on its way to China. And the money for that oil helps to fund the Islamic Republic. That's what it gets used for. It funds the oppression of the Iranian people, the Persian people, and it funds terrorism around the world. China are perfectly happy to fund blood oil. They've got no issue with that. And India, the BRICS partner of China, said, actually, no, we're going to step in here. We're going to seize the oil. We're going to seize the tankers. We're going to hand them over to the United States, because they saw the writing on the wall. The minute Maduro was taken out of the picture, they went, hang on, the oil's about to dry up. That means BRICS is under threat. And that means that the US wins again. And I genuinely think that in the bigger picture, historians will obviously look back at the liberation of Iran with glee, but actually in the bigger picture, the impact on BRICS is actually the bigger geopolitical story here.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with you. I said today on my Instagram that when it comes to what's going on geopolitically, everyone is immediately overnight an instant expert. And depending where you sit on the political spectrum, whether you're left or you're progressive or you're right or you're far right, wherever you sit, everyone has a defined narrative and it's ready to go. The second something happens, that narrative gets deployed, and no one's willing to even just take 1 minute to let the Iranians, who have suffered under this repressive regime for 47 years, mind you, just have a freaking moment to see that light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying this is, again, it's not benevolent. But what we are seeing for the first time for the Iranian people is hope. This is an opportunity. Yeah. Let them freaking have it. What the Westerners jumping on and immediately trying to hijack the conversation. That's why I wanted to get Diba on tonight, because I'm just going out of my mind, and the thing that gets me, right, in the West, we talk about all these things with such authority. Like, again, depending where you sit on the political spectrum, everyone is an expert on fascism, on dictatorships, on totalitarianism, on geopolitics, and yet no one in our generation has gone and lived under tyranny, unless, of course, you've migrated across from one of those countries.
That's right.
So everyone in Australia and everyone in the US, you might think you're oppressed by your government, but if you can still speak up and you can still dissent and call out your government without being shot, let me tell you, you know nothing about oppression. So drowning out the voices of the people who actually live there, who actually grew up there, who actually have family there, it just sickens me to my core. Let them have this moment.
Yeah, and we saw the same thing with Venezuela. And Venezuela and Iran are two very different places. Maduro is a dictator, and he would occasionally crack down in ways that would lead to some loss of life. But the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic, they were on a whole other level. But in both cases, we've seen spontaneous celebration from the people who know, the people who've been there. And yes, for anyone that's new or for anyone that's getting thirsty, Venezuela. I went to Venezuela in 2015. I saw the oppression with my own eyes. I was there for a week. I saw this incredible country, beautiful country, rich in natural resources, largest proven oil reserves in the world, by the way, larger than Iran, beautiful growing climate, rich soils, incredible tourism opportunities on the doorstep of some of the wealthiest tourists in the world. And yet they're living in poverty. And I saw people with jobs, people in suits, dumpster diving, looking for food to take home to their kids because their job didn't cut it, right? So I haven't lived it, but I have seen it with my own eyeballs, not on video, not edited by somebody, not narrated by somebody. I stood there and I watched it happen in front of me. And that changes you. Now, for me, it didn't change me all that much. I was already very well aware of what went on. But for my wife, it changed her enormously. She came back a very different person. And it was largely because everything that I talked about as a libertarian political commentator, anti-big government, pro-free markets, pro-freedom, it was all theoretical until suddenly she saw it in Venezuela. And then it went and became very, very real. And I joke sometimes that she's more radical than me, but that's only a halfway a joke. That she's genuinely actually more radical than me in many, many ways. And it was seeing it with her own eyes that radicalized her. You've traveled enough. You've seen how different people live. You may not have seen the inside of an oppressive regime in that sense, but you've been exposed to how some people have to live. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then when you hear people that have had these prosperous, coddled, just had it too good for too long kind of lives, who then want to pontificate about Iran, about Venezuela, about these parts of the world. It really, really gets your goat in a really, really big way. I have no patience for it, and even less as time goes by.
I'm so frustrated by this. I mean, I know I've said this before on the podcast, but my interest in this stems back to when I was a kid. I'm not going to repeat the story, but I grew up overseas. I was traveling extensively before I was even 5 years old. My parents, for the first time that I remember, I mean, obviously I've probably got memories prior to this, but my first recollection is being in Auschwitz as a kid. I remember it vividly. I remember the feeling. I remember looking at things, and obviously I was too young to truly comprehend what I was looking at. But I guess there's a feeling, there's a sense. And I've shared this before. My brother and my dad are very into aviation, so they were interested in going to a lot of World War II sites. And I was fascinated by Hitler. But once I learned about Stalin, that's where my attention went. And as weird as this sounds for a young girl, I became utterly obsessed with learning about Stalin, understanding Anastasia, obviously the Russian Tsar, Lenin. And then obviously as I got older and my comprehension around this sort of grew a little bit, I started to get really fixated in understanding Marxism and understanding communism. And I went to Cambodia I went to Egypt when I was 21. And that was my very first moment of proper culture shock. Like I've traveled extensively, but going to the Middle East for the first time, or is Egypt Middle East technically? Kind of.
Africa, Middle East,
Going there was honestly the first time in my life I genuinely felt culture shock. Just seeing Cairo for the first time, experiencing a very different culture where women are viewed very differently, particularly Western women. And then I went to Syria, and this was prior to ISIS. And I went to Damascus, and I was able to meet the locals and understand more about them. And this, by the way, guys, was at the height of the Iraq War. This is right when everything was at fever pitch. And my experience with these people, Islam aside, was that they are incredibly hospitable, happy people. They're proud people. They want to share their customs with you. Islam never entered the chat. But obviously, as times unfolded, things have become more and more radical. We've seen what ISIS did to Syria. We've seen what the Taliban's done to Afghanistan. We've seen what the IRGC has done to Iran. And I think for a lot of people, we blanket things because it's easier for us as Westerners to understand. We look at them as them, other than us, right? All Afghanis are this, all Iranians are this, all Syrians are that. No, there is a small minority of radicalized extremists who are absolutely unconscionable, horrible people. But for the most part, there is a huge portion of the population that get caught up in it. And when people say, oh, why is it our problem? These people are just as defenseless as you and I as Australians. So imagine 100%. This. Like, can I just paint the picture so that people get this through their heads? In Australia, if we were, we're not, just to be clear, but if we were suffering under a totalitarian regime where we were being shot properly in the street, not by rubber bullets, by live ammunition, and being slaughtered and being imprisoned and being executed, no one in Australia could rise up. We have no way to do so, right? We are outpowered. And this is what a real oppressive state is. And so when you talk about it's not our problem, it's not our thing, okay, sure, to a degree, I agree with you. But it does become a point when we hear about 45,000 or estimated up to 100,000 people being slaughtered, when we look at the history book, every time someone opens up the page to a genocide, whether it's Rwanda, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's what happened under the Khmer Rouge, people always say the same fucking thing. Why didn't anyone do something? Well, this is your moment. This is when you do the thing. And I'm sorry, it's never going to be cookie cutter perfect. You're never going to have some utopic person who's going to come down, who doesn't have any baggage, who isn't some kind of, extreme leader to one side of the political aisle. This shit's always messy. People always fucking die. And this is where I get so worked up because history just repeats itself over and over and over again. Humans fail to learn the lesson. And we're not going to learn it this time either. Instead, we're just going to argue with each other.
Sadly, I'm not wearing the right shirt today. I should have worn my history, one of my history shirts. Now, I want to jump into a super chat here, which is very, very relevant. And I want to preface this. in moments like this, where something truly terrible is happening in a place like Iran and people are dying, and obviously people in other countries around Iran are being rocketed and bombed, and there's horrible stuff happening, it can feel really churlish or insensitive to talk about how that does impact us. But the reality is we live the lives that we live, and we live in the place where we live, and we need to look at the impact that this is going to have on the things that are practical to us and to our reality. And so with that in mind, Banana Mags makes a good point. This is bad timing for farmers. Most of our fertilizer comes from the Middle East, not to mention oil. So farmers are about to enter cropping season without fuel or fertilizer. If only we had some domestic production. Yeah, this is not wrong. This is not wrong. Do you remember the AdBlue scare from about, I don't know, 2 years ago? Carly, you don't drive a diesel, so this might have passed you by. I don't know.
I remember it.
Yeah, but people were saying, oh, we're going to run out of AdBlue at any, or maybe it was more than 2 years ago. Maybe it was during COVID. I don't even remember anymore. That whole timeline's just weird. People saying we're going to run out of AdBlue, and then the trucks will stop running, and then people are going to be starving and dropping dead in the street because like we run out of AdBlue. And in the case of AdBlue, that's a crock of shit. Trucks can be made to run without the AdBlue. It requires a warranty voiding ECU flash. But if you think truckies are going to sit there with their truck idle while they owe money on the mortgage they've got on the truck, while there's people starving to death over there and there's food over here, but oh no, I haven't got the AdBlue, and they're not going to do something about it, well, you've got rocks in your head. Of course they're going to do whatever it takes to get the trucks running. But fertilizer and actual diesel, well, that's not something that you can get around quite so easily. Yes, okay, you could run a season without fertilizer. Now that would hurt your production, but for one season, that's not going to be the end of the world. It'll deplete the soils, and you won't get as good of a yield. But certainly fuel, yeah, everything stops these days. We don't have the population to go and work the fields with hose. We need that combine harvester to work. We need that plow to get dragged across the soil, or the seeding, the seeding drill to do its thing. And so this is a real problem. But this raises a really interesting question that I want to throw over to you, Carly. We all say we want security. And I agree. Even as a libertarian, I'm sitting here going, yes, I would prefer it if Australia made its own fertilizer. I would prefer it if Australia made its own fuel. I would prefer it if we had an arms manufacturing industry here in Australia making, tanks and armored vehicles and guns and drones and whatever else. I would much prefer if we had that on shore. But in practice, Australians, and I'm going to generalize here because it is generally true, Australians, myself included, when it comes to what we buy, we pick the cheapest thing. Now, Dick Smith proved this. I helped him with his project for Dick Smith Foods. So he was doing Australian-made peanut butter, Australian-made jam. He had the matches. Instead of being called redheads, they were called dickheads. Right, I worked with him on some marketing stuff for that back in the day when he and I used to chat a fair bit. And unfortunately, it wasn't successful and it never really went anywhere. What he proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, putting his money where his mouth was, love him or hate him, he puts his money where his mouth is. He said, I'm going to back Australian food producers and we're going to get it on supermarket shelves. It's going to be $1 or $2 per jar more expensive than the imported stuff. But I believe Aussies will back it because we all want to buy Australian made. And sure enough, when you do a survey, Aussies will tell you they want to buy Australian made. When it comes to putting a product into our trolley, we don't. We don't actually care. And Dick Smith proved that beyond a shadow of doubt. So how do we simultaneously say, I want a country that has its own fertilizer, but I'm not willing to pay more for food? I want a country that makes its own fuel and processes its own oil into usable petroleum products on shore, but I'm not willing to pay more at the fuel bowser. I mean, is this just the consequences of our own actions at this point?
I think, I proved this as well with my clothing company at the time. This is right when sustainability was starting to become a term, before everything was greenwashed. And everyone was talking about how they wanted to support the environment and do things right. And, I went on a trip to China and I showed it to my entire Instagram audience. I literally documented the whole thing. And all of my competitors at the time were just shell-shocked that I did that. I was like, no. It's obvious. My clothes say made in China. Here I am in China. I'm showing you exactly the process. And I took my entire customer base, my Instagram base, through the entire production. I was like, this is Joe. He's my supplier. This is our factory. This is how things work. And I said, now we're going to go across the aisle and see how things work when you don't pay the high prices, when you get things cheap. And I showed people. And I'm telling you now, they did, they act like they care. It's cool to look like you care, but when it comes to actually parting with your hard-earned cash, no one did it. So I offered them. I was like, I will make cheaper stuff if you want, or I'll make the high quality stuff. You tell me. Everyone picked the cheaper. Everyone.
Yep, 100%. And that's the reality. So it's sort of which way Australia, which way Western man. Do you actually want to have the security of knowing that that Australia can operate as an independent island, or do we want to have the quality of life that we have? Because that's what prices translate into. Prices go up, quality of life goes down, right? That's what it translates into. So people are picking the better quality of life right now.
Well, you just have to look at who are the biggest companies in the world right now, for consumer goods. The biggest fashion company in the world right now, Shein. Followed closely by Temu and Zara and H&M. And you go look at Amazon. What is Amazon full of? Alibaba shit.
Yeah.
That's what people want.
So this is an interesting comment from Pro Engineer, and I don't know him personally, but he's got a history of comments here, and he tends to know what he's talking about. So worth having a read. It isn't possible for imported fertilizer to be cheaper than local production without market manipulation. Remove the foreign manipulation and you can. I disagree with the premise. Now, I have not, and let me be really clear about this, I have not looked into fertilizer production. So I don't actually know. I want to be really clear about that. But instinctively, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be possible for fertilizer production in Australia to be more expensive than it is overseas, given the environmental hoops that we make anyone jump through. I mean, fertilizer comes from gas. It's a petroleum product, nitrogen extracted. I can't remember what the process is, but there's a process that takes natural gas, I think it is, and turns it into nitrogen-based fertilizers. They're literally a petroleum product. With all of the environmental hoops that you have to jump through, with all of the safety stuff that's going to be required around anything like that, all the transport rules and regulations, all of your employment law, not to mention the cost of the physical real estate where you're doing the process, not to mention the cost of the staff, I don't see any inherent reason why it wouldn't be possible for Australian-made fertilizer to be more expensive than the stuff made overseas. Now, in addition to that, other countries do subsidize critical industries. Now, we don't, and I think that's a good thing that we don't, but other countries do. And this is one of the things that Trump gets up in arms about with his tariff diplomacy that he's done against the EU, is he's saying, well, you might not be imposing a tariff against America, but you are subsidizing your industries, which is a non-tariff support for your local industry. So places like China and other countries in the world, they will subsidize what they regard as critical industries to keep them running and to keep them cheap so that they can export the product. And now this is a double win for them, because it guarantees that they have domestic supply. Should anything ever go wrong, they will be fine. But it also means that countries like Australia become dependent on them, which means if the thing that goes wrong is a war, not only is China going to be just fine, we're screwed because we're depending on that supply line still being open. So if by manipulation, Pro Engineer, you're talking about other countries artificially making theirs even cheaper through subsidies and so forth, then yes, I agree. And I don't know how you handle that when you're not the country imposing that. It's being done on the other side. But in terms of it being more expensive to manufacture here in Australia, that completely makes sense to me that would not be economically viable. Same with the processing of our fuel. It is literally cheaper for us to ship our crude overseas, have it get turned into petrol and diesel and distillate and everything else over there, and then shipped back to us. That's cheaper than running Coode Island. Right. And unfortunately, that's a reality that is now baked into our economic sort of formula here in Australia. We are a high cost of business jurisdiction, and it's hurting us in these ways.
Loz made a good comment here as well. Maybe that's what we want, but we can't afford it sometimes. And I do agree from a consumer point of view. And I mean, I see this with my old clothing company and with what I do with you and just people in general. Yeah. Everyone wants to have a bit of everything at the moment, right? And this is a cultural thing. And this stems from, I know we've talked about this before, but this stems from such comfort and prosperity. We're at a point where we think it's normal to have a 4-bedroom house and 2 cars and air conditioning and cooling, and everyone has a TV in their room and everyone has a laptop and everyone has an iPhone. That's where we're conditioned to believe is the norm. And I'm not saying that you don't deserve that, to be clear, right? But when you get to a point where we are culturally conditioned to think this is the normal, asking people to live within their means seems really impossible. right? Which is why Kmart steps in or Amazon
Sure.
steps in or Temu. Because it's like, well, we know you can't afford the expensive version, so here's the dupe. Here's the copy of it. It's the same with cosmetic companies. I mean, you've got MCO Beauty, which is at Woolies, which literally copies every single major cosmetics brand. And so these businesses come in and go, well, we're a cheaper option. So you can still have everything. And I think at the core of a lot of this is in the West is consumerism. But in doing so, because we have exported all of our manufacturing offshore, we rely on imports. We support this bizarre economy where we send out our raw resources, import it back in the versions of, cheap Chinese steel or Chinese junk, and then we consume at such a ferocious capacity, it ends up in landfill and gets shipped to Africa, and then we just keep repeating the cycle. So, this is a whole chicken and egg argument, and I'm not pretending to have the answer, but what is the answer here? Do we as Westerners start to accept that we are consuming too much and perhaps we need to live more between our means? Or is the answer to bring manufacturing back into Australia and repeal all the regulation and start to make things here and have people understand the value of good, well-made Aussie products?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. That's not me.
Well, the way you phrase that at the end, I think, is the key. I'm all for bringing Aussie manufacturing back, but not through subsidies and tariffs and protectionism, because that ultimately condemns an industry to irrelevance on the global stage and therefore uncompetitiveness. And so in the end, you're just increasing the cost of living. That's actually what happens with tariffs. And that's Trump's tariffs are no exception. Trump's tariffs are increasing the cost of living for Americans. They are a tax on Americans, not on the other countries. That's always the way it is. So the key to how to do it is deregulation. We need to dramatically reduce the complexity of doing business here in Australia, the red tape, the green tape, the reports and the forms you have to fill out, the bureaucrats you have to keep happy, not to mention the taxes and fees and charges and licenses and permits that you need to get. That's money. It's also time. Now, time from when you decide to start a business to when you can start operating, because you've got to wait for the permits to come through. But it's also time every year, reapplying, getting permits, paying the fees, filling out the paperwork, getting the paperwork corrected because somebody made a mistake. That is all wasted productivity and wasted effort. Then in addition to that, we've got all of our employment laws, which are incredibly rigid and do not offer the level of flexibility needed for people that want to work in their own ways. So, for example, I was a forklift driver for 7 years. I've talked about that before. If I'd had the option, I would have jumped at the chance to work 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8-hour days. I would have jumped at the chance. And I went into negotiation with management to say, hey, listen, there's an EBA agreement coming up. You don't have to sign one EBA with the entire workforce. There was the union guys and they were all off on their own planet. And there was 2/3 of the workforce were not unionized. And so I sort of went to them and said, hey, listen, can we all just get together and organize a non-union EBA and actually, get into it, some of these flexibility things that we want. And what killed it in the end was the fact that legally they cannot not pay overtime rates after the 8th hour. So even if we get together and we say it is better for us, we would rather do our 40 hours, it was actually 36, so it would have been 4 9-hour days. We would rather do that in 4 9-hour days than in 5 7 or 7.5 hour, whatever it was, days, right? With that, we would rather arrange it in this way. That is irrelevant because a bureaucrat somewhere made the decision that in the award, they absolutely had to always and everywhere pay overtime rates after 8 hours in a day, in a shift. And so that flexibility was gone. Now, that's only one example. That's a very niche example, but there are people that want, a 2-hour shift, but the law says the minimum shift length is 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever it may be in their industry. Not to mention that it's so arcane. There are different awards for different things. And to the point that even government departments are getting it wrong. Universities, companies with massive HR departments are getting it wrong. That's how complicated it is. And, so that's only naming a couple of the areas where we are just shooting ourselves in the foot. The cost of energy is another big one. The restrictions on land release leading to unrealistically high real estate costs, which leads to high costs of renting and leasing commercial and industrial property, which again increases the cost of doing business. You start to put them all together and you realize that your average business is spending half of its life or more working for the government before they get to actually earn any money to pay their bills or to turn a profit. And then we wonder why it's not affordable to make anything in Australia. Well, it is directly the cost of government. And so I'm all for bringing Australian manufacturing back, let's make cars again. Let's refine steel again. Let's do all the heavy industries again. Let's get back to aluminium. We've been slowly squeezing them out, but let's not do it through protectionism and through tariffs and through subsidies. Let's do it by actually fixing the underlying problem, which is the cost of doing business.
I agree with you, but I think there's also a cultural issue here. We've touched on this before, but this is something that I just think is so well baked into Aussies. I don't know how you fix this, and that is this me versus them mindset around entrepreneurs and business owners. And like, you just see this in every comment section. I brought this up a couple of weeks ago, and it was an accountant talking about his client that was earning $750,000. And he was talking about how much money he gave to the government and how for the first 3 days of the week, you're working for the government to pay tax. And then it's only Thursday and Friday that you get to keep or whatever. And I mentioned when I brought this up in the comments, people were just utterly outraged that someone was earning that. And you're like, you don't deserve that. You don't deserve that. And it's like, but hang on a minute. That is on the table for everyone. Through entrepreneurship, through deregulated industry, through innovation, there is an opportunity for everyone. You don't have to take it. No one's making you do that. But for those who do it, for those who take the opportunity to build a business and create jobs and put money back into the economy, that's the reward. There has to be incentive. And this mindset around, you shouldn't be rewarded for taking those risks. Well, then what's the point? And then people wonder why we end up with such a bloated public service where, what is it, 1 in 5, 1 in 4 are employed by the government
it's 1 in 5 or more now, Yeah.
This is outrageous. So we've got like almost half the population that are dependent on the government for a paycheck. That is outrageous.
Just to be clear, for those that are going to nitpick, Carly just switched from one stat to another. So 1 in 5 directly employed by the government. More than half of Australian households dependent on government money in one form or another. Those are two different stats, because I could just hear it in my head. People were going to try and call you out, Carly, like, oh, she said 1 in 5, and then she said more than half. She's talking about two different things.
Yeah, you get the point. Sorry. But I just, my thing is, I say this on the podcast all the time. We talk about policies, we talk about it on paper, but the actual application of this is a cultural thing. This is drummed into people. And I think it's even worse now, particularly with the generation that's been brought up on how unfair it is for them, eat the rich in this mindset.
Yeah.
How do you combat that? We talk about radicalization with the Islamic State. How do you de-radicalize Australians who look at anyone with success as the enemy?
Also, and I brought up this comment for a reason. There is this assumption that because something doesn't suit me, it shouldn't be allowed, right? There's this kind of thing of, if something is good, the government should mandate it. If something is bad, the government should ban it. If I think something is good or bad, then it's good or bad, and no one else is allowed to think otherwise. This is an example of that last one. Why work 2 hours to earn $40 when it will cost you $20 in petrol and lunch? Not worth it. Okay, I accept that there would be many, many Australians who would absolutely agree with you. But there are going to be uni students or even high school students who would happily earn $200 a week in after-school work. There are going to be single mums returning to work. There are going to be retirees who are just trying to earn a little bit of money without hurting their pension too much. There are lots of people, disabled people, who have maybe a fatigue-related condition, and 2 hours is all they can realistically do, but they want the dignity of actually getting out of the house and doing something. There are lots of people in lots of different life situations who would look at a 2-hour shift and go, actually, that works for me. Working around children pick-up and drop-offs, working around who knows what other, an extra 2 hours at the end of a full day working a full-time job. I need a bit of extra cash on the side. I'm going to pick up the extra 2 hours. There are lots of people. It doesn't have to be a majority. It's not about, only 5% of people would want that. Okay. Then there are 5% of Australians who think they would be better off if they had the flexibility to pursue these sorts of working arrangements that 95% of Australians would sneer at. I would say, oh, no, I wouldn't want to do that. That makes no sense for me. Well, it doesn't have to make sense for you, right? If it makes sense to nobody, then the employers will have to offer different terms. If employers come along and go, hey, listen, I really need people for 2 hours during the dinner rush at my kebab shop. I need you from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm going to have other people working from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. when the drunk people are getting their kebabs, right? If a shop owner says, hey, this is what I'm offering, and absolutely everyone goes, nah, screw that, I ain't doing it, then that's a signal. back to the shop owner, right? No one's obliged to take the offer. But if people are taking the offer, consider the possibility that maybe they're doing that because their circumstances are different to yours. And we should allow them to make a decision that's different to what you would have made.
I think that, this is the frustration I have with so many Aussies. I can just see some of the comments here as well.
Newsflash, Lil, I am a communist. Little Alfie, newsflash.
Communist?
I am a hardcore communist. Not a communist. Hardcore capital. That's going to get snipped. I am a capitalist. Read the comment. I am a hardcore capitalist. Sorry, I'm tired.
Sorry, I'm going to need a minute. That's hilarious. That was the best Freudian slip.
I'm a hardcore communist.
Guys,
yeah, not what I meant.
In case it's not abundantly clear, Topher and I are 100% capitalists. But, let me just speak to something, because I think unless you are in this industry or in this kind of mindset, it might seem alien. When Topher and I talk about entrepreneurism and business and, hustling and stuff like that, I want you guys to have the choice to do it or not. I'm not saying that everyone has to work themselves to the bone and everyone has to do a 60-hour week. But just to give you guys some insight, I know I've said this before. I think I roughly work at the moment somewhere between 60 to 70 hours. And that's not an exaggeration. That is because I actually love what I do. No, I don't love working with Topher. Let me be clear. That's not fun. But what I mean is, like, when I'm on holidays and when I'm not in front of my computer and not working on some project, I get like antsy. Like, I actually enjoy what I do. And I'm not saying that, I know it's a luxury and whatever. Guys can come at me for that. But for me, I want the opportunity to work hard now because I want to accumulate wealth. I want to have success. And then I want to travel the world and have all of that. Now, that's my personal goal for my life. I don't expect you to have the same goal. You might want to have a house and have kids and settle down. And I don't begrudge you that. But each one of us has these goals, and each one of us needs different means to achieve those goals. And when we say it all should be like this and why isn't it like that, basically you're clipping other people's wings because it doesn't suit you. Now, as much as you guys might be like, I don't want to be an entrepreneur, I just want to work my 9 to 5 and go home. Great. That's not a bad thing. But why clip the wings of the entrepreneurs who want to put in the 60, 70 hours, who want to make millions?
So,
it benefits us all.
There's an interesting thing that happens. I'll use selling a book as an example because I have a book. So I'm not criticizing anybody else. This is, I'm criticizing me. People say that a business shouldn't be allowed to make that much money. Whatever, Carlz, Woolies shouldn't be allowed to make that much money. That book author sold 1 million books. He made $10 million off a book. It wasn't even that good of a book to begin with. Now, that's unfortunately not me yet, but I'm working on it. But let's work to this theory for a moment, that there's an amount of money that you should earn that is acceptable for a business or an artist or an author to earn. In my case of writing a book, let's take my first book, Good People Break Bad Laws. It took me about 2 years to write, but about 6 months of actual work over a 2-year period. It was about a quarter-time job over that period of time. So what is 6 months of my life worth? Okay, well, let's just say that I'm on the median wage, whatever it is, $80,000 a year. Okay, so that's worth $40,000. So I'm allowed to make $40,000 out of my book. That's and if I start to make more than, let's say, 80,000, more than double, well, at that point, I'm being evil. I'm being a greedy capitalist at that point. Okay, what does that mean I should sell the book for? Well, that depends. How many copies are you going to sell? Well, if it's shit and no one wants it, I'll sell 10, and 5 of those will be to my mum because she feels sorry for me. If it turns out it's a really good book, I could sell 1 million. So you tell me what price, how much profit am I allowed to make on each book? So we pick a profit that is what the market will pay, and then we test it. We say, hey, everybody, do you want to buy this book for this amount of money? No, screw you. It's Firelighter. That's all it's good for. Oh, okay, I guess I better drop the price. Or, hey, this is an amazing book. I'm going to tell my friend about it, and then they come back and buy one. The person who sells 1 million books hasn't ripped off 1 million people. Right? They have offered value to 1 million people who have said, hey, I'm going to give you money in exchange for that thing because I heard about it. I heard it's really good. The author who loses money on their book, it's not because they've been screwed over. It's because either they didn't know how to market it, they didn't have an audience to market it to, or maybe it was just rubbish and it wasn't very good. But in either case, this idea that a business should make a certain amount of money and then beyond a certain point, oh, no, you're not allowed to do that. Well, you literally cannot operate a business that way. You have to make so many assumptions about what your volumes are going to be, what your costs are going to be, what the time lag is going to be, new product performance, all kinds of things. You can't. It's just not possible. If someone makes a lot of money and they do it honestly, so they're not using any deception, they're not using any coercion, and they're fulfilling their promises, then them making a lot of money is proof enough that they've done good in the world. So many people say, I want to make money so I can do some good. And that's great. If you want to give money away once you've earned it, fantastic. That's up to you. But actually stop and think for a second. The fact that you made money, if you've done it with integrity, you've kept your promises, no deception, etc. If it's assuming that's the case, if you've made money, it's because you've already done the world some good, right? You can choose to give that money away and do the world even more good. But if you've made money with integrity, you've already done the world good. And so someone who makes a lot of money with integrity, it's because they did the world a lot of good.
The other thing is too, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you want more resources and more people to be able to do things, you need to allow those people to accumulate things so they can reinvest. And, you know, there's so many things I wanted to do with my clothing company back in the day. And I remember thinking like, you know, I'm going to do this and I want to invest in that. I want to help this. And I had all these big plans. And unfortunately, it just didn't go the way I wanted it to. But you know, you need resources. Everything costs money. And I'm not to drive the point home, but last week when we did the live show, I think people saw the ticket price and then they see, you know, that earned them this much money. You know, it's a lot of money. It's like what you guys don't see is all the little things that creep into the cost of it. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, you know, people have this like, oh, well, it cost X, therefore Y. No. There's so much extra stuff in there that you don't see. The cost of, hire cars, the cost of adding extra things in and going to office works and, you know, all these little incidentals that you don't realize. If a company is running on such thin margins where there is no room for error, then you can't innovate, you can't do extra things, and then you can't give back. It hamstrings everyone. But anyway, I'm just saying the same thing now. I just get so annoyed with Australians because, like, I know it's not necessarily you guys on the chat, but whenever there's someone in the news, go and look at like The Age or the Herald Sun. If it's Adrian Portelli or some Aussie success story, you watch their comments talking about how, how evil they are for making money. And it's the whole eat the rich, tall poppy shit. That's Australians, unfortunately, the vast majority of them.
Yeah, 100%. All right. So there have been some other things going on in the world besides the situation in the Middle East.
Hansen.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Pauline Hansen?
Sure. Well, we need to because she has been censured again. I'm not quite sure what the point is. It is the height of. Well, hang on. Sorry. Can I just say? It is the height of childless lords living in high towers musing on heraldry. They are consumed with the appearance of the thing and utterly disinterested in the substance. You're welcome, everybody. Have a good drink on me. What's the point?
They have the intellectual depth of a puddle. These people aren't very intelligent. They're not very smart.
All right. So you educate me, Carly. What is the actual point and purpose of a censure motion besides moral preening?
Well, that's exactly what it was. I mean, we just had to see the reaction of Lydia Thorpe, calling her a racist in the chamber, saying all this shit and screaming out. You know, what was it? Lydia Thorpe called us all filth.
Yeah.
You know, anyone that supports Pauline or One Nation, we are the filth of Australia. That is Lydia Thorpe's deplorables moment. And what gets me, right, this is how we know these people aren't very intelligent. They're not very cunning. These aren't people who think about things. The reason I know this is if Lydia Thorpe was smart, if Payman was smart, if Maureen Faruqi was smart, if David Shoebridge was smart, they would look at the current sentiment of Australia and they would find a way to Trojan horse themselves in there, ride those coattails and shoo people back to their side. At the moment, there is a ginormous upswing towards Pauline Hansen. The biggest issues are immigration and Islam. Like it or not, that's what Australians currently care about, obviously cost of living and all that sort of stuff. But Islam seems to be something that whenever Pauline mentions it, the base goes, yes, finally someone's saying it. And so when you get someone like Payman or Faruqi reading out the Quran in Arabic in Parliament, Australians rightly are pissed off. When you hear people like Lydia Thorpe, who's, you know, she's an antagonist anyway, but calling us filth, all she's doing is running a campaign for Pauline Hansen. You are going to push more people down that path. So this is how we know they're not smart, because they're obviously not trying to recruit for themselves. I think that a lot of these guys are truly threatened by Pauline. And I mean, I don't know why they haven't worked it out yet. Like, you guys have been running the same script since COVID, calling us racist, bigots, Nazis. It's not working. No one actually cares.
So, Carly, though, I disagree with you on one point. You're assuming that they're actually trying to win, that these politicians are trying to make a difference and trying to fix something in whatever version of the world that means for them.
Oh, I mean, win their seat back. That's all I think.
I'm becoming reasonably convinced that they do not want to actually win. And yes, win their seats back, yes, but they don't actually want Pauline Hansen to be defeated, because their ability now to play to their base, to fundraise, to be ever so important in all their little tea parties that they go to and dinner parties that they get invited to, in a world where the Pauline is coming, there's a shibboleth, there is a monster that these people are trying to save everyone from. And within their bubbles, within their supporter bases, they've never been more relevant. It's a little bit like Greenpeace does not want the environment to be safe. The worst thing that could possibly happen to Greenpeace is that there are no environmental disasters to speak of. That's why they have to make them up all the time. Because if there were no environmental disasters, then there's no reason for anyone to donate to them. It's the same with the police have to find problems. They can't have a peaceful society. They need to, if nothing's going on, they need to get busy finding something going on. Why? Well, because they have to justify their own existence. They have to justify the paycheck. So I'm actually not convinced that people like Lydia Thorpe are being stupid when they say these things that we know are going to increase the support for Pauline Hansen. It's either they're stupid or, excuse me, or they're at like Trump levels of 5D chess. It's one or the other.
Can we just go back to this comment for a second? There's always a couple in the chat. If you have $1 billion and you still want to take from people, you are a CUNT. I hate to break it to you, but you know most billionaires don't have $1 billion in their bank account, right? Like, I just need you to be clear on that. You understand that to be a billionaire, you don't have $1 billion cash. You have assets that have a value of $1 billion. So on paper, you're worth that. You don't actually have $1 billion. You have leverage. You can borrow against it. But this is the common misconception. Oh, if you got $1 billion, why can't they have that? They have built something that has become valuable to get to. Just so you guys understand this, to be able to accrue $1 billion, your business has to be huge. To get a business that big, you are employing hundreds, if not thousands of people. You have infrastructure. You have people who are dependent on you. You have got so many things to go on. And this is why I get so annoyed with Aussies. Oh, billionaire. Do you know how hard it is to make $1 billion? Do you have any idea what resources it would take to build $1 billion company?
But to their credit, Anthony Albanese and Jim Chalmers are making it easier than ever for us all to be billionaires. Pretty soon, we'll be shopping with wheelbarrows full of $1 billion notes, and then we can all be happy.
Yeah, no one gets to $1 billion ethically. Fact. Is it fact? Can I just, is it fact?
Yeah, you rant and then I will rant.
No, okay, so this is the thing. Like, friends, everyone come sit around the fire. Auntie Carlz wants to have a chat. All right, I'm going to patronize.
It's a trap. You. Everybody run. Everybody run.
I'm not going to get spicy. I've turned over a new leaf. I am trying to keep my cortisol down. So I'm going to use humor. All right. If you honestly are that cynical about the entire world, I'm sorry you haven't met better people. Because I happen to know quite a few billionaires. I happen to be friendly with one. I happen to be around plenty of wealthy people. I don't say that to flex. I say that because I want to be in those rooms with people who have figured things out, with people who are doing things that I would like to achieve. I'm not going to learn more from people who have done less than me, not to say that they're not good people, by the way, right?
Yeah.
But when you turn around and say you cannot get $1 billion ethically, I'm going to throw that back at you. You don't get that attitude without having been around a bunch of really crappy people. And that's
or being a really crappy person.
That's a you thing. If that is honestly your hot take, unfortunately, you're surrounded by shitty people, because there are wonderful people out there who are crazy wealthy, who are philanthropic, who throw so much money at the arts or at the local sports. And, everyone shits on Gina Reinhart. There wouldn't be half of the Aussie sports centers there are without her. You'd have fucking nothing. And then you'd be like, oh, why don't we have a cricket pitch? Why don't we have uniforms for our team? Because you don't want anyone to have any fucking resources to be philanthropic. I talk about chicken in the noodle aisle all the time. Everyone is always pointing the finger, looking laterally. You've got more than me. You shouldn't have more than me. It's not fair. Billionaires eat the rich. Those billionaires have sacrificed more than you could ever fathom to have been able to build something to accrue that net worth. And usually the best thing they do is spend it philanthropically, because that gives them pleasure, as opposed to sitting behind fucking spreadsheets and in boardrooms the whole time. When I hear this shit, I'm like, you've never had a hard day's work in your fucking life to know what it's like to be able to build something like that. I'm sorry, shitty people. That's my opinion. Get offended. I don't care.
I've just put my glasses on because I'm about to say something intelligent. I just wanted everyone to know.
I should just do this. Whenever I'm ranting, I'll just put this in the camera.
Well, someone said in the comments earlier, we need heavy metal music to go behind your rants. Every time Spicy Carlz kicks in, we need like a... Yeah, exactly. Okay, so... at the core of this thinking, and by the way, Duncan the Crusader, absolutely, these people want to be in rooms with people like me. I've had multiple, billionaires reach out to me out of the blue and want to be talking to me about something or other.
Usually they want to send the ladder back down. Honestly, they want to send the ladder back down.
But here's the crucial thing, not in the form of charity, right? No. And this is why they're billionaires, and this is really important for what I'm about to say. They are not offering charity. They are offering the opportunity for you to work your ass off and to benefit enormously through that process, because that's how they got to where they are. So the world is not a fixed pie. People who resent rich people, it is rooted in the belief that every dollar in this person's account is a dollar less in somebody else's account. That is a lie. That is a fallacy. And it can be easily shown to be a fallacy. We have more people in the world right now than has ever existed before. And yet on average, they are the richest that humans have ever been. Now, some people say, oh, I don't feel very rich. I'm struggling, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, if you're in Australia and you have internet access, you are at worst in the top 2% wealthiest people that have ever lived. I'm living on a pension. Yes, including you. I know, I'm unemployed. Yes, including you. If you are not homeless, and even if you're homeless, if you have a bridge and enough money for internet access to be able to be watching this right now, you'd still be in the top 3 or 4% of wealthiest people who have ever sucked breath out of this atmosphere in all of human history. We have lost...
Didn't know where you were going with that.
We have lost perspective on how incredibly wealthy and lucky we are. There are no exceptions. I don't care what your sob story is. If you're listening to this, there are no exceptions. You are in the top 2%, probably the top 1%, certainly no worse than the top 5%, wealthiest people that have ever set foot on earth. There are kings from 250 years ago who would have gladly swapped places with you, because the life you live, the technology you have, the quality of life, the medicine, the health, the communication, the transport, the air conditioning, the range of food and frozen goods is mind-blowing. We are so filthy effing rich. So why do I emphasize that so much? Because it proves that it's not a zero-sum game. It proves that one person getting wealthier doesn't mean someone else got poorer. And only once you break that false assumption can you start to understand how the world really actually works. The way the world really actually works is this. We are all in the business of consuming all day long. Oxygen, water, food, wearing out our clothing, occupying a house that's slowly deteriorating with time, wearing out a car. We are consuming relentlessly every single day. Even the most non-consumerist person is consuming something. We have an obligation to create as much as we consume. Otherwise, every day the world gets poorer because we were in it. And I think that's morally wrong. So we have an obligation, if we are physically and mentally capable, we have an obligation to create more value than we consume. So life is this journey. We are consuming on one side, we are creating on the other. And if on average we create more than we consume, the world gets richer. A rich person, if they've done it ethically, and there are many rich people who have done it ethically, is simply someone who has figured out how to create even more value, an excessive amount of value compared to how much they consume. They have figured out how to put the pieces together. A business is nothing more than a machine of lots of different pieces that creates a product. And if the product is worth more than all the pieces, if the sum is worth more than all the parts, the business owner gets to keep the difference. They get to keep the extra value that got added on to that, the sum of all of those parts. If the sum is worth less than the parts, they go bankrupt. They suffer. They lose the house. They lose everything. That's what business is. It's an opportunity to arrange energy and inputs into a way that is more valuable. More valuable according to who? According to the customers, according to the people who are paying the bills. So here's the bottom line. If you've gotten rich the right way, it's because in the opinion of others, that's the customers, you made the world more valuable. And they decided to buy the thing that you put together, or that you owned the company that put it together. You designed it. You figured out how to employ the right people and do the right things. You made the world more valuable. And someone looked at that and said, I'm not going to buy this one. I'm going to buy that one because I like that better for whatever reason. And you got money as a result. Congratulations. You're now the billionaire. Are you evil? Has that been unethical? Have you made the world poorer? No. You can become a billionaire. I can become I'm working on it. I'm nowhere near it, but I'm hoping to get there. Because if you do it the right way, making a crap ton of money is clear evidence that you've done a crap ton of good. So anyone that's criticizing billionaires, there's no ethical way to do it, blah, blah, blah. No, you're completely wrong. You are trapped in zero-sum thinking. You need to break out of that, because for as long as you're trapped in that, you're not going to create a lot of good in this world. You're going to create only a mediocre amount of good. Break out of it, set yourself free, and start doing good.
I gotta say, guys, like I love you and I love that you watch this show, but watching some of these comments come through, I'm really sad this is your mindset, that you look at things like, money is evil and rich people are all evil and they all got their doing something bad or unethical. It really makes me sad. And, I speak about this every podcast, about tall poppy, about culture, about mindset. And then I see it in the comments and I'm like, I don't know how to cut through, it's like you don't want to get better. I'm sorry. Like, this actually gets me really upset. It's like you just don't want to see another possible way. You're so fixed in this thinking that success and people who are wealthy, who have built something, are evil and don't deserve it. This is such a shit attitude. And it's such an Aussie attitude. I honestly, in all honesty, I resent this part of Australia. I resent it so much, because all it does is make everyone who's actually working for something, people who are ambitious, people who are trying to innovate and do something, it just makes their life harder. No one's asking you to do it. No one's forcing you to do it. Just let other people do what they want to do. Don't assume that they're all fucking evil just because they're ambitious.
Yeah. So here's a great question. I like this question. What about trust fund babies? Okay. So this is a common thing. Well, correct. So people say, people shouldn't be allowed to pass them the wealth on, etc. No, it's private property. You should be able to do with it whatever you want. But the point Carl's made is exactly correct. It's a thing known as social mobility. So people measure, I think they usually do it in quintiles, it's sort of divide the society up into 5 brackets, and they measure how freely people are able to move between brackets over the course of their lifetime. So someone born in the poorest bracket, are they stuck there? Because let me tell you, in India, if you're born in the poorest bracket, you're stuck there. You ain't going nowhere. 200 years ago, England, if you were born in the poorest bracket, you weren't going anywhere. You were never owning land. You were never becoming an upper class person. Social mobility was almost zero. You were locked in. But also, if you were the son of a wealthy person, you were going to remain high status for life, no matter how much of an idiot you were, no matter how incompetent you were, no matter how little value you brought to the world. Social mobility was inelastic. You were pretty much locked in from birth. Today, social mobility is the highest it has ever been. the highest that it has ever been. And there are more billionaires who were self-made from very humble beginnings, not like your Elon Musks and Gina Reinhardts that people have been complaining about in the comments saying, oh, well, they inherited a bunch of money. That's true. They inherited tens of millions and then turned it into billions. I still think that's a pretty good achievement. But in the world today, more than half of the world's billionaires started from lower class beginnings. They didn't inherit a couple of tens of millions and turn it into billions. They went to a public school and did a regular job and worked hard and struck upon something and built a business and turned themselves into billionaires. More than half. And by the way, I'm going to have to go back and find this study again because the study was old when I looked at it. I think it was a 2015 study and it's been a few years since I looked at it. More than half of all trust fund babies end up middle class or worse by the end of their life. Many of them end up on pensions. Social mobility works in both directions. And so being born as a trust fund baby is actually a pretty good recipe for misery. They often end up with massive mental health issues, very difficult at social connection and social interaction because often they're raised in a certain social caste. And then once they drop out of that caste, no one wants them anymore because they just wanted to, because they were part of that high status caste, and they don't know how to make real friends because they never learned, they never had to. They often don't have valuable life skills. So once they crash out, they don't know how to rebuild. Whereas someone who comes from nothing, builds, and then crashes out knows how to rebuild. They have that muscle. It's like the butterfly getting out of the cocoon. They've developed those muscles in order to survive, and they can survive a crash. We see this all the time with artists who make it big a little bit too young. They don't live the life expectancy of someone who becomes a famous actor or musician before the age of 22 is really bad. Why? Well, because they didn't develop the muscles. They got there, but they didn't actually have to fight for it. Someone gave them a free ride, or they got lucky and good on them, but they haven't got the muscles. And so it's trust fund babies.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say it's no different to people who win the lottery.
Yeah,
most
correct.
Lottery winners end up broke.
Do not envy trust fund babies. Okay, I get it. It looks like an easy ride. Do not envy them. Instead, work your ass off to be someone that they will never be, and that is someone that built the muscles that come with doing it yourself from scratch.
Do you know what I've noticed as well? Like, I know a lot of people, want to be a billionaire. I don't think I want to be a billionaire, if I'm honest. I want wealth for sure. But what wealth looks like for me, I don't necessarily think I need billions of dollars. I want freedom to be wherever I want, to travel wherever I want, and not ever have to think about things, and do so comfortably and easy without having to, be delayed by Jetstar. And that's the kind of life, because the other thing is too, when you're a billionaire, I don't think people understand this, particularly people who have big investments or, big businesses. They become slaves to that too. You can't really take your hand off the wheel. You might be on a super yacht, but you're still working. You're not sleeping. You got to be up for a call at 3 a.m. on the other side of the world and all sorts of stuff. So, I think it gets painted a certain way because people don't see it. But I know a lot of very wealthy people who are desperately unhappy as well. It really comes down to a combination. It's a beautiful combination of doing something you're passionate about, doing something that's lucrative, and building something, and also finding where that happy level is for you. And I don't think I ever want to be the person who's at the top of a multi-billion-dollar company. I don't think that's my role in life. I don't think I'd enjoy that.
So I spent some time chatting with someone who worked for 20 years on ultra-rich super yachts. They worked in the Caribbean and the Mediterranean, the sort of the seasons that happened between those two. Worked on, I think, only about 4 different boats over that time, if I remember rightly. She managed to sort of stay on the same boats for quite some time. 2 of them were charter boats. One of them was a pure owner boat, and one of them was an owner boat most of the year and then chartered out for one of the seasons. I don't remember which. So it was kind of this spread of experience between charter and ownership. Now, those are 2 very different worlds. The charter boats are people who can't afford to buy one, but they charter it for a week. These are your trust fund babies. These are the people doing their end of college celebrations, their end of year, their birthday party. We're going to go and spend a week on a yacht in the Caribbean or the Mediterranean and party it up. She said those were hell. They were just so incredibly unpleasant. Parties until all hours, people being rude, people, just really, she hated that side of the job. And she worked hard, and it took her nearly 10 years, but she got to work on a pure owner boat. She wouldn't tell me who it was for obvious reasons, but a very wealthy individual, multi-billionaire, who spent some months of the year on the boat, mostly in the harbor, but living on the boat and, with the family, and then would go and move to different places and but mostly sitting in the harbor. But anyway, she was working on the boat and helping to maintain it. She was a cabin crew, basically cleaning, fluffing pillows, serving drinks, doing all that sort of stuff. And her comment, the culture shock that she couldn't get over when she switched from the party boats, the charter boats, to an owner boat, was that the owner was up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing a rigorous workout, because by 6 o'clock, his first call would happen with his team. There was a 6 o'clock in the morning call that he would have to be on, and the team would be wargaming, whatever it was. She's obviously not a party to those things. And then breakfast had to be on time because he had a certain amount of time to eat before XYZ would happen. The helicopter would come in, pick him up off the helipad on the back of the boat. Off he would go. His life was regimented strictly. His diet was regimented strictly, both for his own satisfaction, but actually also because he had to be in peak physical performance. The analogy that she gave, and I think she was trying to give me a hint as to who it was, but I don't know billionaires well enough to be able to use this hint. But she said, imagine the way that Novak Djokovic has to live in order to maintain that level of peak performance for every match that comes up. But now imagine you don't know when your next match is going to be. It could be sprung on you in 15 minutes' time. That was the analogy she gave me for a high-level business person who is continuously making tough decisions that are massively high stakes, that with the lives of tens of thousands. That's the other thing she said, that he ran a business that employed tens of thousands of people. The lives of tens of thousands of people are at stake if you get this wrong, and you care. Like, these people aren't all sociopaths. You care about the people that work for you. And he has to be ready for game time at a moment's notice. And he lived accordingly. He lived that life of discipline. And she said, everyone thinks, because we know the party boat culture, everyone thinks that the owner boats are party boats, and they're not. These are some of the most disciplined. Like, if he drank, he never got drunk, she said. He never got drunk. If he drank, it was very expensive, very high quality, and he would have a glass. And then the crew would get to finish the rest.
Most wealthy people I know don't actually drink a lot of alcohol, and they also don't buy like exorbitantly expensive things. They definitely have nice things, but it's not in the consumerist mindset that we have. And I think do you know what I think has caused a lot of this? It's social media. I mean, it's easy to point your finger at social media for everything, but you think about all the influencers, all the faux rich people, the people who, rented private jets just to get their photo on it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people aren't flying private because it's bougie. They're flying private because they're time poor, or they've got to be in multiple places at once and things like that. And not many private planes are actually that nice. I know it sounds way nicer than it is, but they're small. You don't get meals on them. Like I know people like, oh, I'd love to fly private. You probably would, but you'd probably prefer business or first class on a commercial jet. What I think we see is, all these people flexing, they come back and they've been to some, you guys would have seen this story. Social media influencer, Michaela Noguera or something. She's a beauty influencer. And she put up a video about 2 months ago where she went shopping for the day and spent $250,000 US. Yikes. And she went to Chanel and Louis Vuitton and Prada and all those brands. And she came back with so many bags. And she did this video where she's sitting in front of this wall of designer stuff. And she's like, oh, I bought this jacket. It was $27,000. Like, what? She bought like 50 designer bags and hundreds of pairs of shoes, whatever. And she's showing it. And she probably did buy that. No actually wealthy person shops like that. Not a single rich person buys like that. That's faux rich.
So all the brands that have the big vulgar logos, I call them Bulgari, Bulgari, they are for the people that want to look rich. You go to the Cannes Yacht Show or walk around any of these parts of Europe, especially. Europe have got this down. This is one thing they do have that's better than America. Is there comes a point where they're so rich that everything becomes understated. And it's really interesting. So there's the difference between new money and old money. I'm sure you've heard this. New money has all the latest stuff, and all the flashiest stuff, and they'll update all the time. They're on the treadmill. Old money, well, they might still be driving the 10-year-old Rolls Royce, right? It's still a Rolls Royce. It's in beautiful condition. It's been immaculately maintained by a full-time chauffeur. All he does is just lavish love on this car, but it's a 10-year-old car, and the thought of upgrading just feels like too much bother. I just can't be bothered. I would have to go back down to the Rolls Royce factory and pick out all the different options, and I just don't have that kind of time. There's nothing wrong with the one we already have, dear. Right? That's the old money talking. They don't need the flashy. The phrase "buy once, cry once" applies very much to genuinely wealthy people. They don't need to be updating all the time. They will have a simple capsule wardrobe that is everything is exceptionally high quality. The minute it gets damaged, it gets thrown in the bin. That's true, right? But they're not there with flashy stuff drawing attention to themselves. They're not sitting there, people with the Dolce & Gabbana sneakers that are just these crazy designs, people with, the logos running down the sides of their tracky decks. Okay, like that's Russian money. That's Russian new money. But your actual old money does none of that stuff. They don't need to. And it becomes the understatedness that actually becomes the symbol of wealth. And I think the Europeans have got this down.
Can we segue over to a friend of the show, Jacinta Allen? And speaking of status,
my biggest fan, she loves me.
Have you heard the latest? Her big social profile. So some savvy users have noticed that her social media profile grew by 54,000 people. So what I'm going to do, I'm probably going to freeze. I'm going to bring up Social Blade. For those who don't know, Social Blade is a website where you can look at people's metrics. So if I sign in quickly.
This is the website that influencers live and die by.
Yes, and it's YouTube, Instagram, social, all those things. So Jacinta Allen's, what is it? Jacinta, what is her handle, friends? Does anyone know? Is it Jacinta Allen? Hang on, I'm gonna have to look up on Instagram. 1 minute. Live doing this.
Post goats. I have to admit, I have never considered buying a competition goat. I will confess that has never crossed my mind.
Is that something I'm unfamiliar with?
I don't know. I don't know what this is. I might be being trolled in the worst possible way. I have no idea. I have considered buying a goat when I saw a baby goat jumping on a trampoline at a friend's house, a hobby farm, which was hilarious. And I went, the kids are going to love this. And then I looked across at the grown-up goat that was punching a hole in a fence in order to get to a rose bush that it planned on devouring before it got to the tires and ran out onto the freeway and had a headbutting competition with a Mack truck. Like, grown-up goats are there's a reason why Satan is often depicted as a four-horned goat, right? These animals, these are the correct animals to use as a depiction of Satan. I have never seriously contemplated buying any kind of goat, and I did not know until right this moment that there was such a thing as a competition goat. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Well, I'm glad we had that little segue. Here is Social Blade, friends. Yeah. So what you notice here is she had a massive jump in 53,471 followers overnight. Now, friends, we all know Jacinta's not this popular. So two things could have happened. One, someone bought themselves some followers, or two, can you believe it? It was probably the Liberal Party signing her up to a bot farm, and it was not her. She was hacked. And she was hacked so good that they gave her 54,000 social media followers. Who knew?
Sorry, I'm having a really hard time parsing the sarcasm here. Did she actually try that on?
She said she reckons it's the Liberal Party who set her up to some kind of bot farm. And I'm like, honey, if you're gonna lie, can you at least fucking try? I'm gonna pull up her comments. Let me see. Jacinta Allen, social media followers. Let's see what her statement is. But yeah, so this is the kind of stupid tactics these people play. obviously they have bought followers. We can understand that.
Yeah.
Why you would do that all in one night? What, like, this is how stupid these people are. That, like, anyway,
Okay.
so I'm pulling up Carlz Sun.
Can I say this though? And actually, can I just ask you, am I frozen or am I still live?
You're not frozen. No, you're good.
Okay. So my computer's better than yours. So I have just looked up my social blade because people were asking, and we'll bring that up in a second. But it may not have been her personally. The chances of her directly managing her social media are zero. And it may not have even been done with her knowledge, because what happens is you bring in some intern or you pay some third-party subcontracting company and they promise you results and you pay them the fee, and then they go, crap, we're not getting the results. We're just going to pay for some Chinese bot followers so that the client is happy. And this has happened before. I've done videos on this before where we watch this happen in various other sort of forms within the social media world. So I would not be pinning this on her personally, but I will say that attempt to say that it was the Liberals that did it, like, the cover-up is worse than the crime. Just say, hey, we had a social media intern who was feeling the pressure because the growth wasn't what their contract said it needed to be, and they tried to do the dirty on us and they got caught out. Like, just
we know that she's learnt from the master, because Daniel Andrews, his whole thing was, running focus groups and using a prolific Facebook marketing team. And look, know, unfortunately, guys, social media does work. I mean, paying for followers it's probably, Rakesh from Bangladesh. You want to make sure they're Victorians, and you can't do that. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. It's just such a stupid thing.
All right. So you asked, here is the answer. So let me just make this bigger. So this is my social blade.
YouTube, though?
That is my YouTube social blade, I'm quite sure. Yes, YouTube. My subscriber rank makes me 2,186th in the world. That seems way too high. I am not in the top 2,200 channels on Earth. There's zero chance.
You might be. You're over 100,000. That's more than most.
No, there's zero chance. That's not right.
Scroll down to your followers. I want to see how many you bought. Come on, let me look.
I don't know. So
what did you put up on Tuesday? You gained 1,000 on Tuesday.
No. So all it's doing is it's counting 1,000 every time it clicks over a new 1,000. It's just rounded. That's all it is.
It works different for YouTube than Instagram then.
Yeah, it's not really showing YouTube very well. There's no way that's right. So 25 million lifetime views, that's correct. 2,200 videos, yep, fair enough. 132,000 subscribers, yes. C+ grade, look, I'll take anything over Z at this point. 1,387th in the news ranking, 876th in the Australia. That seems way too high. I can't believe that I'd be that close. Not close, but that I'd be that high. That just seems ridiculous to me. Oh, yearly earning. Yes, I'm gonna get $5.5 grand this year. Yes, according to Social Blade. That's it, kids. If you just do an entire year's work, you too can have $5,500 after a year.
These things aren't necessarily accurate. They're accurate from a follower point of view, but social media games, who knew? So
let's have a look. Facebook. Hang on, I just want to do one more thing. Because this is my biggest platform.
B+.
23,000th on Social Blade. B+. I'm better on Facebook than I am on YouTube, apparently. I'm ranked 13,000th on the talking about rank. And okay, so this is more like it. I'm 120,000th on the likes rank. That's more what I would have expected. That's more what I would have expected. And you can see my likes are going up by a couple of hundred a day most days. So yeah, there you go.
Cool. We've got some comments in here, people asking why we aren't talking about the pedos that run Australia and things like that. And I'm like, what would you like us to say? You think we know more than you? Like, guys.
Yeah.
What do you want us to say?
That's a great topic. So here's the thing, Craig Matheson. We tend to talk about things where there's something new to talk about. Because otherwise, like I could sit here and keep talking about the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, which I did my first video on in 2011. Would you like me now to be in the 16th year or 15th year of talking about the exact same topic that really hasn't changed because the legislation hasn't changed and the problems haven't changed? Would you like me just to, let's do another live stream every Monday night, 2 hours of Topher talking again about the exact same topic. So when something changes, we tend to talk about it then. So no, we're not just going to bring up your pet topic because that's what you want.
Oh God, we're rowdy tonight. Do you know what?
Yeah.
This is kind of where I'm at. So for those who are, in the chat and wanting us to talk about things, it does get tedious when we show up for the show and we talk about things and then we get told that we're giving the wrong opinions and that if we're not parroting their opinions, we're Mossad agents or ASIO agents or whatever we are. It's very exhausting because everyone seems to be an expert except Topher and I. And apparently, unless we're saying what you want to hear, we're all Mossad agents. So it doesn't make it very fun for me. I will say that. If you want it to be a fun show, don't yell at us all the time and tell us that we're not deep enough and we don't know enough, Anyway.
Yeah. And it is quite funny to me. So the reason I've got my I shill for no one thing on, let me just get that. I shill for no one thing is because on my video about Iran today, I had a whole bunch of people jumping in with the 7,000 shekels comment. I don't know if you get this one, Carly. People are like, oh, I hope you got your 7,000 shekels. Like you sold out to the Jews. And they just think they're being so clever. Like they're like, this is a complete sentence. This is an entire argument. That's all they say, 7,000 shekels. And I'm like, well, okay, firstly, by now, it would have to be at least 7 times 7,000 shekels, which would be the perfect number, 49,000 shekels. So if someone could follow up with the Israeli Ministry of Shekel Giving, that'd be great because I haven't received any yet. Also, how many shekels do I need before I get a chance to go on the space laser? Because let's be honest, shekels are nice. Space lasers are cool. And I want to blow up Oprah Winfrey's house from space. I think she's got it coming to her. And if I could just get that space laser, 5 minutes, that's all I need. Look, listen, okay, fine, I'll level with you. 30 seconds. I can have a good time in 6 seconds. I can have a good time. That's all I'm asking for. All right?
Much information.
That's all I'm asking for. Now, question. YouTube views. Is it accurate that you click and watch for 30 seconds? Yeah, nah, move on. Or does the entire video have to be watched to count as a view? It is 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds, I get my ad revenue. Yay. So all you have to do is watch for 30 seconds and then I will get my ad revenue, which is like 1/1000th of a cent per person, something like that. I'm not quite sure. However, you guys get the shekels. I think that you get it through crypto, don't you? They give it to you some other way.
Maybe they've got the wrong destination because I keep refreshing. So funny story. I mentioned this already, but I am looking to go to Egypt later this year and I want to go via Israel. And I just cannot wait to hear everyone start the conspiracy theories. So guys, I'm giving you a heads up. You can start your conspiracy theories now. You can start thinking about ways to spin. Kali's in Israel. She's Mossad. We knew it all along. He works for the Jews. To be clear, I have a goal of setting foot in every single country on this planet. So at some point,
what about the married ones?
Have to do it as well.
What about the married countries? You said every single country.
Oh, missed that. You're funny.
No, Craig, we're not avoiding the topic. It's a boorish topic about which there is nothing new to say. That's it. Grow up, move on, become a more interesting human being.
Do you have proof? Do you have unequivocal proof that's happening?
Apparently, I'm owed about 31,500 Australian dollars. I don't know how many seconds of space laser that buys me, but if it's more than 6, I'm good.
So with what's going on with Iran, I think I'm just going to say this because I feel like it's important to be an adult occasionally. We're going to be neck deep in propaganda over the next couple of weeks. And, obviously Topher and I have our opinions based on what we want to happen or what we believe is happening. But to be honest, unless you're boots on the ground and seeing it with your own eyes, everything we're all hearing is secondhand, thirdhand, digested through a mainstream media machine, obviously beholden to key stakeholders and advertisers. So it's going to be really difficult to know the actual unequivocal truth. And that's why I brought on our guest tonight. You know, we can sit here and postulate and give you opinions, but truly, like when we get angry with each other, when we're arguing in the comments and when you're getting all worked up on Facebook groups or Instagram messages or whatever, truthfully, we actually don't have the answer. Like that's something we need to keep in mind. I know it feels like you know, because you've read some really, really meaty stuff on the internet. But who's to say that's not bullshit? I'm just the ultimate skeptic. I take everything, unless I see it with my own eyeballs, I take everything with a grain of salt.
So Koala Blues is a contender for the Freudian slip of the night. When speaking about you going to Israel, he says, is German going with you?
I just read it.
Of all of the available Freudian slips, that's not one of the good ones.
Damn, that's hilarious.
That is dark.
To be clear, he meant G-Man.
Yes.
Guys, everyone asking about Diba. Yes, I'd love to have him back. We'll see if we can figure out the microphone situation. This was all very ad hoc, and I organized this literally like an hour before the podcast. So, I apologize. It didn't quite work out as good as I hoped, but we'd love to have him back. And I'd love to not interview, but like chat to more Iranians, regular Joes, regular Joe schmoes who, because that's what we are, regular Joe schmoes.
Yep, it is. All right. So, all right. Brain has just had a fade. No, it's gone.
I think I'm about ready for a cup of tea.
Yeah, look, and the TV is telling me it's wind-up time. All right, so we just had a super chat come in. Let's have a read. Aussie Ninja says there's a million other people talking about the PDF files. Topher and Carlz keeping it original, in my opinion, not regurgitating the same crap 10,000 other people are. This is the other thing as well, is what value are we adding if we just jump on the same topic? I get really tired. So I follow a lot of influencers because I want to see what's going on in the world. And yeah, there's a bunch of them in America. And if one of them comes out with a video on a topic that I haven't seen before, I promise you within 2 hours, every single one of them is going to have their own hot take, which are all practically identical on this issue. And all they're doing is piling onto the latest viral thing. And I can't live like that. I want to actually feel like my work is making some kind of a difference. If something's already well covered and people are already all over it, I'm going to leave it to them. Only if I feel like there's something missing in that conversation will I then add my voice. Otherwise, what am I doing? Just adding to the noise for some cheap clicks? Like, no, thank you. I'm really not interested in that. So thank you for noticing. I appreciate that.
Craig's not letting go. He's saying it affects Australia. How? I know you, like, okay, to be clear, pedophiles, gross, hate them, scream about them all the time, okay? So just so we've got that understood. But the list of 28, right? The list, what's his name? Heffernan list or whatever, the prime minister that's on that list. If we know it and those people are dead, the prime minister, I don't know who this person is, but everyone speculates. Have you seen the list? And if you know that information, what do you, honestly, we just, okay, because he's getting worked up. Let me give you a little hot tip, Craig, if we know who these people are. We just had a judge, a professor who was a judge who was lecturing at Monash University show actual child porn in a lecture theatre. And after he had been charged, he booked an expensive overseas holiday, and the Victorian judicial system saw fit to send him on that holiday. And we don't know whether or not he ever actually came back. We just had a man who was a principal in Mornington Peninsula convicted of pedophilia, and he got 3 months in prison. We have had a whole host of people who are child sex offenders who work in childcare. So my point is, as fucked as it is, nothing gets done anyway. So even if you know who those people are, do you really think in our current state of affairs they'll take it seriously and they'll fucking do something? No.
All right. So a couple of things on this. I've done multiple videos on the 1975 pedophile tape that was broadcast by the ABC. I interviewed the journalist who revealed it. I've interviewed MPs who have pursued it in Parliament, and getting some accountability for what happened in 1975 with the pro-pedophilia show that was aired on the ABC. The government denied its existence, etc. Well, it's been found, and it's in the public domain now. So when something like that breaks and happens, I absolutely cover it. But I'm not going to sit here and have a show every I've seen the list and Carlz is on it. I'm not going to sit here and have a show about a topic where nothing's changed, right? If there's news, if there's something new that's different that I can help people stay up to date, cut through the crap, make sense of the nonsense, and keep up with the world as it changes around you. That's my promise to the people that follow me. I'm not going to sit here and regurgitate stuff that's old news. Now, I do, however, want to bring up this one, and maybe let's close on this. Guys, please do not lose sleep over concerns about Iranian retaliation. Is there zero chance of a sleeper cell? Well, no, it's never zero, but it's as good as zero. And here's my evidence. Sorry, let me be more specific. People are worried that Iran has sleeper cells in Western countries, thousands, tens of thousands of operatives embedded in Australia and the UK and the US, and that they're going to activate. They're going to activate and be blowing up shopping centers and gunning people down in the street. Okay. Is it possible? Yes, but it's always been possible. And there is no reason to believe they will do it now if they haven't done it already. Because let's not forget, when was it, mid last year, July last year, something like that, the US bombed Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran explicitly threatened, and I did a social media post about this earlier today. You can find it. I've got the references there. Iran explicitly threatened sleeper cell retaliation, saying that the world would never be the same. Their retaliation would last forever. Do you know how many sleeper cells activated in the Western world? Zero. Big, fat donut. If Iran were able to activate precisely zero terrorists outside of their own territory in response to President Trump destroying nuclear sites, I think the number of terrorist cells that they will be able to successfully activate now is going to be probably 4/5 of 2/3 of 100% of the same number. All right. I really sincerely doubt it's going to be anything other than zero. If it is above that, okay, I'll wear that I was wrong. But I think the risk is so infinitesimally low that it is simply comparable to the risk of an attack happening at any other time. If you don't lose sleep ordinarily, you should certainly not be losing sleep tonight.
The only thing that was activated was Topher's almonds. Yeah, look. And this is what I was warning about with the propaganda. I've had a lot of people ask me this on my Instagram saying, like, how are you maintaining this level head? Why are you not upset? So I'll give you guys, maybe we can end with this. There's a story of the allegedly a US or Israeli missile that took out a school and 108 schoolgirls were killed, right? That's the story. Now, depending whether you read that on Al Jazeera, ABC in Australia, CNN in America, or Fox News in America, or Channel 7 here, everyone has a very sort of a definitive view about that story. Now, The issue is that story originated from Iranian state TV. So this is how I approach it. Topher, you might have a different way, but this is how I approach it. When it comes to these stories, and everyone's up in arms. So Abby Chatfield's comment on it, obviously. Hannah Ferguson from Cheek Media, she's commented. All the feminists are outraged about these young girls who have been, regretfully, by the way, I have a heart. It's awful that they've died. But when I look at that story, and then immediately people are like, oh, it was Israel, it's Mossad, it's Donald Trump. Okay, cool. Let's have a look at the facts. What do we know? Firstly, the story came from Iranian state TV. They are literally the propaganda wing of the IRGC. That is their entire purpose of existing. All right. So they have a agenda. Now that we know the agenda, let's look at point 2. Point 2, what do we know about Iran and the way they treat women? Well, we know that they have morality police. We know that women who don't wear the hijab are either tortured, captured, or worse, killed. We know that women can be headed out of honor killings. We know that women are seen less favorably than sons. So tell me also, after an estimated 35,000 to 100,000 dissenters have been slaughtered by the government, and many of which are now rotting in prisons awaiting execution, why would Iran suddenly be really upset about the slaughter of 108 girls? It doesn't seem to fit, does it? So they're the two things. I don't even need to look at Donald Trump or Mossad or Israel. There's two inconsistencies there. And when I look at the story, I look at the language, the alliteration, the really emotive headlines. It's sensationalized for two reasons. One, they want to make you see their narrative and take their perspective. Or two, it's sensationalized so that you click on the article and they make ad revenue. You know, that sounds very cynical, but when it comes to everything coming out of Iran, none of us know. None of us know. Unless you saw that exact missile and now it's laying on the ground with an American flag on it, how do you know? The Iranians, all of the Iranians are going out there and commenting on all these social media posts saying, no, it was Iran. Iran did that. The machine did that. But, you know, I don't know why people get so worked up. We don't know. And acting with such confidence that you know, because you have this agenda that you hate the Jews or that you hate Donald Trump or wherever you sit on the political spectrum, that you are using that bias to affirm that version of the story is a dangerous position to be in. It means that you are beholden to your emotions and you're not able to objectively read the news. It is so important to keep that in mind.
It's also important to remember that the truth, the lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. The Iranian government have now come out and acknowledged that the missile that hit the school was Iranian. That is now official Iranian government.
I didn't realize that yet. There you go.
No, they've admitted that only in the last 2 hours. And here, by the way, is footage of that missile. It was launched from quite close to the school. It was meant to sail way over the top and onto some target somewhere. And instead, this is what happened. Oops, hang on. Let me just, I don't know if there's audio with this. I guess it'd be pointless audio anyway, because you're not going to hear a missile from that far away. But that's it there. It is heading off on its path. And then all of a sudden, it makes quite a significant turn towards the ground. Appears to lose power. It appears that the rocket engine is not functioning correctly. And then we can see the warhead detonate, and you can see the pressure wave coming off the impact there. So tragically, dozens, if not possibly over 100, I'm not sure what the exact death toll is, of young people, girls, died as a result of a misfiring Iranian missile. And yes, that was the missile. We just watched the malfunctioning missile. This has been accepted by Iran. It was their missile that did it.
But the problem is, your feminists, your progressive left, the story's already out. They're not retracting their version of events. They're not changing their perspective. It doesn't matter now. The tone has been set. The narrative has been set. And I'm sorry, like, I just need to pull this up because this is going to piss me off. Craig, I'm about done with you, man. I think you should keep in mind that you're both pretty green to what's going on. Okay, mate, if you're the expert, start your own fucking podcast and we'll come over and watch it. You seem to know everything. I'm so sorry that you have all the information and no one wants to listen to you. It must be such a burden to have so much truth in your head and no one's paying you attention. Have you got it now? You had your attention. You've stolen the show. Do you feel good? Because I'm done. I'm done, okay?
So, Craig, I've been doing this for 17 years. I've conducted interviews with heads of state internationally, with renowned scientists internationally, people both living and now dead, sadly passed away, who would have lost more brain cells in their younger drinking days than you've ever had when you were at your peak. I have assimilated an enormous amount of that information, that worldview, that perspective, and I bring it every single time I get on camera. Then a random person called Craig gets online and wants to tell me how to do what I've been doing for 17 years. And I am apparently not too bad at, given the fact that there's 981 people watching as we sit here live right now. I'm just going to say, you know what? I don't give a flying fuck what you think. This is my podcast and you're not going to tell me what to do with it. Have a good night.
Oh God, we're a bit angry tonight. Sorry, guys, we're a bit angry. No, I will say this, just something to keep in mind. Topher and I do this twice a week, and we have been doing it for a year and a bit now, and we haven't had a break. So you get to a point where you're reading all these articles, you know, you're putting in your due diligence. There's only so much you can do. You get to a point where, like, you've consumed so much content, you don't know which way is up or down, and yet people still aren't happy. It's actually a really exhausting position to be in. Like, I come to this with my opinion, but then I try and be objective. Of course, there's going to be biases. I'm human. We all are. But expecting it, like, us to puppet back what you want to hear is just like, it's a waste of everyone's time.
All right. I think we need to wind it up before you and I say something that I was going to say something we regret. No, something we are exceptionally proud of for all the wrong reasons. It's been fun. It's been a little bit spicy. We're both a little bit cranky. I just wish the microphone had worked better. We will get him back because I really wanted to have a much longer conversation with him, but with the microphone situation, it wasn't viable. But we will do that.
And look, you know, I'll be looking for more people that we can bring on as guests as well. And something just to keep in mind for you guys who are regular viewers of the podcast, I could pull in all the same social media influencers as everyone else, but oh my God, we have to finish on one more thing. Sorry, just hold that thought. G, keep my cup of tea warm. Okay, so I can bring in all the other social media influencers. That's easy, but you guys are kind of already hearing from them all on the same podcasts. I don't really want to hear the same people talk all the time. So I'm looking for people like what we had tonight that might have a different opinion, something that you haven't been exposed to before. I know that doesn't get us the ratings. I know it's not as cool, but I think it's more powerful. I think it's more important. But can I just finish with this? I have to bring it up. Hang on. I'm going to freeze for a second, 2 seconds. I meant to bring this up earlier, but we have to.
Can you just, in future, can you just pull more of a funny face before you freeze? That was a bit too normal.
Oh, I was actually trying not to pull a funny face.
No.
All right.
No.
All right. Hang on. It's loading. All right. You ready? Let me share my screen. By the way, the humidity in Melbourne today is just disgusting. I am literally dying. It is stiflingly humid here.
Sorry, I'm still waiting for this bit to get good. I'm kind of when does this get good?
I'm just going to play it.
Me is that I supported the COVID jab, and I have regrets from that time.
Yeah,
and I am definitely sorry for the role I played in not questioning the science, in not questioning more the government mandates, and I feel like I isolated people because of that. And I don't think the media should be involved in that kind of messaging. So important during a crisis like that to get messaging right.
It didn't impact people just in the sense that it injured them and has destroyed many people's health for the rest of their lives, if not killed them. Many other people have had their financial earning capacity destroyed. I mean, I know a guy, Rowe in Canberra, who basically lost his job with the public service and has had to sell his house. I mean, he was a fit and athletic guy who's actually had to sell his house.
So the mandating of this vaccine is what, the other point I wanted to make with you to respond to is to mandate someone to get a vaccine. I think now on reflection is inherently wrong.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Now, can I just say, to his credit, because we're getting very mixed reactions in the comments, and I understand that. I completely understand that. To his credit, he has not tried to do what other people have tried to do, which is to minimize their role or to shift from the position that they held at the time and not admit that they're changing their position. He's owned it. He said, I was wrong. I have regrets. I now see things differently. And this is the thing, guys. We've said this before. I'm going to say it again. If we won't allow people to change and admit that they were wrong, then we'll never be able to grow our movement. We can't add new people if we won't allow people who were wrong to become right. Now, that doesn't mean we put them in the same category as the people who were right from the beginning, right? People who were right from the beginning showed a level of discretion, a level of discernment, a level of judgment. And I mean that in the positive sense, that puts them in a very different bucket to people who got that wrong and then admitted they were wrong. But nevertheless, those people are very different to the people that still won't admit they were wrong. So let's welcome them. I'm not pretending that we forget. I'm not pretending that we put them in the same category as those of us who were right from the start, but I'm saying let's welcome them into the movement. I'm really pleased to see this. I would love to do the Karl Stefanovic show. So Karl, if you're watching, and I know Carl's would love to as well. But more importantly, we need more people to make that acknowledgement and say, hey, I was wrong, and then not be met with condemnation, but actually be met with, hey, we forgive you. We're not going to forget, but we forgive you, and welcome to the movement. And let's figure out how to go forward together to make the world a better place.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about it too. I mean, I was shocked to hear him say that. A credit to him. Like I've talked about Karl last week and how he's making a play into independent media. And, you know, I'm a little bit skeptical because obviously he's been the co-host of the Today Show for God knows how long now. So he is like someone who is fairly embedded into that mainstream media system. But, you know, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But perhaps he is, you know, through his own research, if you will, starting to realize things don't add up. Maybe he's feeling it from the higher ups at Channel 9. Is the Today Show Channel 9? Yeah. You know, to say things or do things, and maybe he's feeling a little bit frustrated. I don't know. And this is the thing. Again, none of us know. None of us are inside Karl's brain. I applaud him saying that. I think that is going to cop him some flack. I think he might find there's a bit of backlash to that because, guys, unfortunately, there is still a really strong contingent of people who really do think that the vaccine saved lives and the way COVID was run was a good thing. The other thing is, we'll save this for Wednesday. We'll do this in person because I haven't even brought this up yet. The class action against the Andrews government. Have I mentioned this at all yet?
No, you actually haven't, and I wouldn't know about it if it weren't for you. So whoever's meant to be promoting it is not doing a great job, but I look forward to talking about it with you on the show.
Yeah, so just I'll go through it properly on Wednesday, but just to give you guys a bit of insight, this all started, I think, 3 years ago. There was a class action. It was heavily promoted at the time. I joined it. I'm in it. There's about 16,000 people in this class action, and it is to give you guys some good news. It is progressing to the Supreme Court. It is a 3-month hearing, and why I stress that is astronomical bills on both sides. That means the government is paying an extraordinary amount of money, and same with the people backing the case. Now, something to know, there is a Singaporean company that is bankrolling the prosecution. So the class action has got a significant amount of money behind it. These people only play to win. And the Singaporean company has a 90% success rate. This class action is specifically against businesses who were impacted thanks to lockdown 2, which was a result of the bungled hotel quarantine. So that all kicks off, I think, in March. And it is looking, the government's defense, I kid you not, I don't want to take up too much time. The government's defense is literally, no business suffered any loss because as soon as the lockdown was over, you were able to resume business. I kid you not, verbatim, that is their defense.
Yep. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that on Wednesday. But can I just say, Benjamin Tresham, some people get all the luck. Some people get to do all the fun stuff. Benjamin has to go and change out a worn-out left-hand outer tie rod end. That sounds like I have to go and rewind my CD collection. It sounds like you're just desperately trying to get out of something you don't want to do. But I get the feeling you're going to have fun doing that. I get the feeling you're going to enjoy yourself, just secretly, deep down. Don't tell anybody. Don't admit it. But just secretly, deep down inside, you're going to be pulling that car apart and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, who's the man? Yeah.
We don't kink shame here on the Oddcast. You do you, boo.
No.
You do you.
You do you. 100%.
All right. On that note.
Coffee.
Kofi.
Click the QR code.
We haven't grifted one.
We are literally the worst grifters on planet Earth. Click the QR code or scan the QR, whatever it is you do with QR codes. Do the thing. Pay us the monies. Help us get the space laser and the private jet. Go to topherfield.com. We have new merch. It's cool. It's designed by Carly. And also my Getting Your Head in the Game masterclass starts later this month. So it's getting closer. Go and have a look at it. 8 deep dive sessions starting in March, going through to October, I think it is. And honestly, if you think my videos help you to understand politics better, this masterclass will help you to understand life better, right? That's literally what it's there for. So go and check that out, get your spot, and we will see you on Wednesday night.
Peace out, homies.
What she said.
To end it. You were meant to end then. That would
sorry. 3, 2, 1, you go. Peace out. We need the thing. Peace.
Oh, peace out.
We've got to do it again. We do. Yeah. All right, fine. I'm just ending. You've ruined it. I'm just